Welcome to Larry's Library. This week I've got a little bit of a special to show you. I thought I'd make a short video having to do with my TBR, my to be read shelf, and the method I use. And that method is FIFO. And so this video is all about FIFO because, I use that term a lot. Some people don't know what the term means. They've never heard of it. Or maybe they know what it means, but they don't understand how I'm applying it. Because what I'm using is not a strict FIFO, but sort of a modified FIFO, my own modified version of what FIFO is. And so this video is all about that. We'll start with a definition of the term FIFO. FIFO, in the simplest terms, it stands for first in, first out. Now, when I say that that's how I do my to be read shelf, a lot of people are blown away. Either, like I said, either they don't know what that means or they're amazed that I have the discipline to do this because my daughter's like, well, I'm a mood reader and there's no way I could ever do that and I would never even attempt to do that. Well, I don't know. It's just something I started doing this so that I wouldn't end up with a book on my to be read shelf that's 5, 6 years old. Now, there are probably still a few that are 5 or 6 years old. I know what you're thinking. Well, how could that be? Well, we're going to get into that right now. But first, let's get to that definition. And I made some notes here. I looked this up on Google, and then I changed it a little bit to more my definition of it because there's a couple of different definitions. It comes from a couple of different worlds, this term. It comes from the world of finance and business related stuff, and it also comes from the world of retail, which is also business related, and inventory, and it has to do with all that sort of thing. So let me give you the definition. I'll put it up here too. Basically, FIFO stands for first in, first out. This is a financial or inventory valuation method that assumes that the first items acquired or produced are sold or utilized first. In retail and or manufacturing, it should mean that the oldest items get shipped out to customers before newer inventory. Now, practical examples of this is something that probably everybody does every week or month, however often you go to the grocery store and you restock items in your house. You don't want to, if you're using a cookie jar, I don't know if people still use cookie jars, we don't, but if you did, you don't want to pour your new cookies on top of your old cookies because that's just going to result in your older cookies getting older and nastier. So the only way to really do it in that case, it wouldn't have to be cookies, it could be some other food item, but you're going to have to take the old ones out, put the new ones in, then put the old ones back on top of the new ones. Otherwise, you're not going to be doing FIFO, and you certainly want to do FIFO when it comes to your food because you don't want your older stuff just going bad on you, right? Now, these books aren't going to go bad, but it could result in items sitting on your shelf for 5 or 6 years that you still have not read. And maybe you're never going to read it at that rate, right? And that's not why I buy books. I don't buy them to sit on my shelf and look pretty. I mean, that's an extra feature, sure, but that's not why I buy them. I buy them because I want to read them. If I was doing a strict FIFO for my TBR, and when I say TBR, of course that means to be read, and when I say TBR shelf, that's a little bit of a misnomer because my TBR shelf is actually, let's see here, it's the lower shelf you can't see in this shot, but one, two. Okay, so I've got about 4 to be read shelves on the lower units over there. And then I have my primary one, which is actually in our bedroom, and it's on a dresser. And so they get older as they move into the library. So the ones that are, well, I shouldn't say it, they get newer because it's FIFO, so it's first in, first out. So the items on the shelf in the bedroom are the next ones to be read. So some of those volumes are pretty old. Old as far as when I purchased them versus when I read them. And then as I add a new book, that book goes at the end of the line. And the end of the line is over there somewhere on those lower shelves. So I achieve my first in, first out. I'm going to read the oldest first, and the newest has to go at the end of the line. Except when it doesn't. So here's the modified part. It gets to cut if I buy a modern book, a modern comic book. Now, what I mean by that is something like, well, for instance, Fear Agent. I can read those modern books, and I think anyone can, probably faster than I can a Bronze Age or certainly a Silver Age comic that has smaller panels with a lot more text, more narration typically. I'd say by a factor of 5 or 10 to 1 faster. So I'm going to let those books cut in line. Cut to the primary position. So I bought Fear Agent. It gets to cut. It gets to lay right there and be next up after I'm finished with whatever I'm reading at the time. The other way I use a modified FIFO, the other way it gets to cut, is if, let's say, for example, and I'll show you that in some B-roll here, is a great example how that works. A book that gets to cut in line is I bought the Incredible Hulk Omnibus, bought the Maestro Omnibus. Now, I consider that a Hulk Omni. Now, I'm already reading my Hulk Omnis. I'm reading the Peter David run. I'm very close to the end of that. This is kind of part of that in my mind. So I have to put it in place between the last Hulk that I haven't read yet in the lineup, but before anything else. So it gets to cut. So hence your modified FIFO. So I'm going to read this Maestro book that I purchased not long ago, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years even, before I get to read something that I bought older that is lower in the FIFO TBR, if that makes any sense. I hope I'm making sense. I thought I'd make a video to kind of explain this a little better because people have asked me about it, and I've mentioned it before in previous videos, but I've never really broken it down so you can kind of see how it works. So I hope that makes sense. But so that's how I keep from having things that are many, many years old, but yet there are still some things that are many, many years old in here. But it is getting better, and I am increasing my reading rate for sure. And I'm doing that. I think I'll make a separate video about my my habits, my reading habits, and my goals and my plans, and how they're shaping up, and exactly what my system is for keeping on track. And the FIFO reading order for the to-be-read shelves, plural, is part of that system. But I'll make a separate video about my reading habits. That might help some. Or if nothing else, you might think, well, wow, I'm doing a lot better than that guy. Or, wow, I need to up my game. So either way, we can work it out together maybe, hopefully. But that is how I do it. And that is my FIFO system in a nutshell. First in, first out, but with some modifications and some tweaks. Now, I should point out that I have not been doing this with my single issues, but the single issues are not quite as out of hand as the hardcovers and the collected editions have become, because I've largely quit buying singles, almost totally, really, and so I only have like, I think I have maybe about 120 or so singles left to read that I have not, that are still unread, and I'm reading one of those a week, at least one a week. So those are rapidly going down because I'm not buying new ones. But there for a while, I was buying collected editions at a far greater rate than I was reading them. But now that has reversed. I have a budget, and I'm more committed to my reading goals. So that is working out nicely. And we'll get into more of that in the separate video about my reading habits and goals. But I hope you like taking a look at this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, if you found this video amusing or helpful in any way, and I will catch you next time.